Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Jennifer Smith. She is here to celebrate her wonderful book. It's called The Creature of Habit. Before we invite Jennifer into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by the books by Kim Ann. Children's author Kim Ann is an award-winning and best-selling author of 15 children's books. Her most recent book, Ninja School Rules, focuses on teaching young children important life lessons about discipline, perseverance, and developing confidence. Kim is also the owner and founder of Lucky 4 Press, LLC, that published her 3 popular book series, Ruby the Rainbow Witch, Goldie the Puppy, and the Go on Vacation book series. If you're looking for a great children's book to add to your family library, be sure to consider the books by Kim Ann. You can find out more by going to her website. It's kimann.co. kimann.co. Join us right now from Los Angeles in California. Our guest is here to celebrate. Her brand new book is called The Creature of Habit. Please welcome to the show, Jennifer Smith. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Jed, thank you so much for having me. I'm great and excited to be here.
I'm excited to be here. I find that the older I get, the bigger the creature of habit in my life gets to be, I think.
Yes, it is. This book is for all creatures, big and small, because there are a lot of us. And I think in some ways, sometimes the adults are the ones who have the biggest tendency towards being creatures of habit, for sure, including myself. I'm a card-carrying member.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. There is a bell that goes off in my belly at certain hours of the day that is just, you got to put food in there.
It's true. I mean, all of these, we get so into our routines um, and it's, not always a bad thing to be a creature of habit. I think it can make you more productive. It can make you feel safer. It can be a really good thing in some ways for both kids and adults. But yes, we often are all guilty of getting a bit stuck in our ways sometimes too.
Yes, 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 indeed. Yes, I've been known to call my habits discipline, but that's where we're digressing here. Tell us about the creature of habit, please.
So it's about a creature who lives on the island of habit, who does the same thing every day at the same time and has always done so. And then one day, a little creature sails up to this island and basically just knocks his whole world off balance. The little creature is, I jokingly call him an agent of chaos. He is, he doesn't do things the same way every day. And so it's about really the big creature's journey um, to both kind of like see the way you can live differently, to come to terms with his own routines, and basically just learn about trying new things, and that uncertainty doesn't always have to be a bad thing.
That's interesting. Uncertainty doesn't always have to be a bad thing, but it certainly is a scary thing for a lot of people.
It's a really scary thing, and the idea for the book really came out of, I have 2 little nephews who I'm very close with, and one of them, who loves school, had changed classes a few years ago and at his daycare, and all of a sudden didn't want to go to school and was crying in the mornings and was just having a really hard time with it. And I was talking to my sister about it, and she was like, I don't know what to do about it. And I said, like, it's not his fault. The poor kid, he comes from a long line of creatures of habit. And I don't really like change. There's a lot of people in my family who don't deal that well with change. And I think the thing about change is that, like I said, sometimes being a creature of habit is a really useful thing in your life. And this is not a book that's saying you should never be one. It's just saying that sometimes you can't control who sails up to your island. And so it's just, in the book, the creature, at the end of the day, experiences a lot of new things that he wouldn't have otherwise experienced or seen because he stepped off the path. And I think when I think about my own life, I am a fairly routine oriented, change averse, risk averse person. And it's just who I am. But the times that I've kind of jogged myself enough to do something different, or to take a little bit of a risk within my kind of, creature of habit boundaries, it often has been some of the best experience of my life because of that. So the message really is just that, like, you can't necessarily control, insofar as there is a message. It's also just these two, creatures hanging out on this island, and eating pineapples and bananas and trying new things. But it's really like the kind of heart of it for me was that, you can be a creature of habit, but you can't control the world. So the idea that sometimes, things are going to happen, and if you are open to the possibility that might not be a bad thing, then hopefully you're just better equipped for those times.
Yeah. I think it's really important for all of us to be able to kind of, the old expression used to be roll with the punches.
Mhm.
Life is going to be throwing you curveballs, and we have to, we can't let that um, cause us to fall apart.
Absolutely. And, yeah, exactly. And I worked for years. I teach therapeutic horseback riding for kids with disabilities. And I've seen how routine can save a person too, and how it can be really what, like, it's the kind of the glue that holds your life together in some ways, and how important that is. But, you know it's just sort of wanting to be equipped for the times when things come up, and when things are different. And I think that in the last couple years, we've all seen just how much that can happen. Is that, there are times when something as big as a pandemic happens, and all of a sudden your routine is totally shifted in one direction, and then it's shifted back out of it the other way. And in a way, it's almost like a month to month, week to week, year to year thing now, to see, what the routine is, what life is, people going back to school, having to do virtual again, going back to work, having to do virtual again. And we've all had to roll with the punches these last couple of years. So I didn't know that this was obviously going to happen when I started writing the book, but it's almost become more relevant in a way, now that it has, because, everybody, this has tested even the least of us, who are creatures of habit. It's pushed everybody's boundaries in terms of how much they have to roll with things.
Yeah. As you're talking about the pandemic and folks' reaction to it, I'm imagining that a lot of the folks who were so resistant to change and being locked down and working virtually, learning virtually, a lot of those same folks right now, as we're coming out of the pandemic, are saying, nah, I kind of like it now. I don't want it to go back to the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's, of course, it's sort of like the lesson as old as time. It's like, if you try something new, sometimes you have to be dragged there kicking and screaming a little bit, but oftentimes, look, some of the times it's not. And there, there's a moment in the book where the creature eats, two pineapples and three bananas every day. And at one point in the book, the little creature offers him an orange, and he tries it, and, he thinks it's pretty good, but it's not as good as a pineapple. And that's okay. Sometimes you try something, but what you like what you like, or you want to do what you want to do. But sometimes we've all been there, where you're stubborn, or you're resistant, or you're scared, and then you try the thing and it turns into something really wonderful, and you're kind of like, what took me so long?
We had a not too long, but well, it was before the pandemic shut everything down. But my niece, who I am very close to, went out and was telling us how she hated shrimp. No, absolutely not. And we discovered she'd never eaten it before, and then we finally convinced her to try it. And I have a 15-minute video of her trying. 10 minutes of her actually trying to bite into the shrimp. But then after she did, she's like, "Wow, this is great."
Yeah, exactly. And it's also, it's then, there's a lot of people who do kind of identify with the little creature who is not a creature of habit, who, and for them, it's trying new things is what they do, and it's easy, and they loathe the routine and all those things. And it's interesting because there are just you're sort of fall into one bucket or the other, right? And I think that each type of person, each type of creature has something to learn from the other.
Yeah. I think Creature of Habit would be a great book for some people to read in the workplace because
Yes.
I have very distinct memories when I had a 9 to 5 job in a kind of a corporate setting. Man, moving the stapler to the other side of the desk could really ruin some people's day.
Yes, I know. I mean, there's a lot of us out there, and it kind of manifests in different ways. But I do think as this book has, it's just coming out, and as people have started to read it, I've talked to so many people about it who have said, "Oh my gosh, like I need this for my oldest, or I need this for I have a creature of habit." But then, as people read it, they really adults identify with it themselves
Hmm.
too.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to get back to, because I think it's really important, you shared with us that you teach therapeutic horseback riding.
Yes.
And I know that can be a life changer for some people. Can you talk a little bit about that and who we're talking about that you're teaching how to ride horses?
Yeah, I mean, I have been involved. I moved to Los Angeles pretty recently, and I haven't found a new program out here. But up until a year ago, I had worked with a program in New York for 15 years. I'd been a certified instructor for I think 11 or 12, and it was one of the greatest joys of my life, and it will continue to be once I land with a program here. But I think these programs are just so important. And it's kids with disabilities. It's a range of whether it's physical or cognitive, and for each type of kid, they get something different out of doing a program like this. For some, it's it's literally being able to sitting on a horseback. If you have a kid who's in a wheelchair, maybe like sitting on a horse is the closest they'll get, to move this certain kind of movement that's really good for them. And for kids, say who are on the autism spectrum, like just the engagement with an animal, with volunteers, with an instructor, the emotional connection with the horse. It teaches balance. It teaches emotional connection. It strengthens the core. It's so amazing. And over the years that I have done it, I worked with children who didn't even want to walk into the arena because they were nervous or afraid. And then, cut to a few months later, and you can't get them off the horse at the end of the lesson, and you get to see this bond, and you get to see the joy of it. And it's truly been a real privilege in my life. But it also, I think, taught me a lot about, you know, I really, when I started writing this book, I was mostly thinking about my nephews and the little ones, the agent of chaos, and the older ones, the creature of habit. And I was thinking about even like, I have a dog who's like just a creature of habit. And I was thinking just about that phrase and how many of us can relate to it, and how many of us, even as adults, are creatures of habit. But as I started to write, I was thinking a lot in terms of the kids that I'd worked with, because I wanted to make sure it wasn't saying like, you can't, it's not okay to be a creature of habit. It's, you have to try new things. You have to do this, because again, like that that is the routine, really, especially for a lot of kids with disabilities, but for a lot of kids in general, for a lot of adults in general, that is what holds your day together. It's what holds your life together. It's what keeps anxiety at bay, or depression, or whatever you might be coping with. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's more, again, thinking about the fact that things happen in the world, and the world comes in, and you can't necessarily control it. And it's wanting to say, like, if you always look at that as a bad thing, it's always going to be met with kind of fear and anxiety. But if you are open to the possibility that occasionally, it doesn't have to be always, doing something different, or trying something new, or stepping off the path in some way can be a good thing, then hopefully you're better equipped. And I was often, as I wrote this book and thought through this book, thinking about a lot of the kids that I worked with for years and years.
Mm-hmm. Is you talking, and when I referred back to being in that kind of corporate place, that was working with kids with severe developmental disabilities within a hospital, big hospital program, and I know that a lot of and our kids really weren't able to do much of anything for themselves, so they were creatures of habit in that the people that served them were on a schedule, and so these kids had no choice but to be on a schedule and become kind of creatures of habit. Do you think we do that to our kids in some ways, that we're over scheduling a lot of kids to the point where it's I gotta get up, I gotta get to school, I gotta go to soccer, I gotta go to dance, and then I gotta do my homework, and then I got an hour to play video games, and it's only between 7 and 8 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just it's kind of just the nature of life these days where everything is very scheduled, and so you can't kind of fault anybody for having a routine because that's it's just we are so booked up that and kids are so booked up that it's just but I think it's interesting because when you think back, like we all have that, right? And we all have that as kids, and kids have that now, and that in that way the world becomes a little bit of a blur when you look back. Your memories kind of like, well, and it was this to this to this to this, and I did this every week, and which week was that, and which week was this, and I can't remember if like was that the Tuesday we did this or the Tuesday we did this, because you're doing sort of the same thing over again. And the things you remember, right, most are like when you went on a vacation or when you did something different that was the thing that was set apart from the routine. And so I think in the same way, you know this in this book, every morning the creature wakes up and he eats his same breakfast and he brushes his two buck teeth and he walks down to the water and says hello to the fish, and he does the same sort of thing every day. And then by the end of it, the little creature, he decides to follow him and to do something a little bit different after kind of a lot of resistance and a lot of working his way up to it. And he sees this amazing sunset for the first time, and then he sits in with the little creature and they watch the stars come out. And I do think that it's the moments when you are doing something different that kind of stick with you the most, and it's those days that become really memorable because they're different. So I really like, I don't think routine is a bad thing. I am very routine oriented myself, but I think it's important to have moments where you're doing something really different, because those kind of stick with you.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm scanning your website, and to be honest with you, it looks like The Creature of Habit is a real big departure from the kind of books that you're typically writing.
It is. I've so far written I wrote one middle grade book, but mostly YA novels, books for teens, and then I have a forthcoming novel for grown-ups in the spring. So it's in a way, I hadn't really thought of it this way, but you're right. The Creature of Habit is sort of me breaking my routine as well, and there's been great joy in that. I've loved writing for teens. It's been a real honor. They are the best audience. They are so honest with you, and whether they love something or don't, and they are the best readers. And it's been wonderful. But I also had a moment where I had been doing that for over a decade, and I had a moment where I thought, I want a new challenge and I want to try something new. And so, The Creature of Habit came out of a moment like that for myself, which I had never quite thought of.
Yeah.
But
Did you find it especially challenging moving from a genre where you could take thousands of words to tell a story to one where you had about 600 words to tell a story?
completely, it was a real sea change, and there was a learning curve to it. And I think that people tend to think picture books are really easy because they're short, but it's wild to me how efficient you have to be, how economical. It's like writing a poem, and I I loved it, and I still have a lot to learn, but it's amazing. I was lucky enough to work with a amazing editor, Lee Wade, who was so gave me a lot of guidance. Um and then of course I was lucky enough to get paired with Leo Espinoza, who's just a genius at illustrate. His illustrations are adorable and wonderful, and make me so happy. But I think one of the things that's interesting is I'm not a very visual writer, and even when I write my novels, like I always the thing that I need to work on in later drafts. My editor's notes are always, sort of describe what they look like. I'm not a very visual writer, and picture books are so visual. And when people ask if what Leo ended up drawing for the creatures is what I had in mind, I didn't, crazily enough, have anything in mind. I just was writing about these two creatures, and I was so excited to see what an illustrator would do with them. And the only thing I said was that I want the big creature to be ridiculously adorable, which he delivered on. But I think writing in such a visual medium as a kind of non-visual writer is has been interesting. But I've loved it, and I'm working on a sequel to The Creature of Habit right now, and it's been fun to kind of be back in his world and his little voice, and it's been, I will say, like, I've been publishing books for a long time. I love what I do. I feel so lucky. I've had so many wonderful experiences. This might have been the most fun, just getting to see your words come to life in such an amazing way.
That's awesome. I'm curious, have your nephews had a chance to sit down and hold the book?
They have not gotten their actual copies yet. It comes out tomorrow, so they're going to the bookstore tomorrow. But they have read. There was a digital version that they read, and they really loved it. And it's been fun to get to talk to them about it. And I was laughing, like my sister, the first time she read it to them, took a video, and there's one scene where the big creature's watching the little creature just do something totally outside of the plan, and it says, like, his very big eye began to twitch, and I'm watching my little nephew on screen, like moving his eye up and down, like and just like, him so absorbed in the story. And so that's been really rewarding. I also just think, I love kids that age. It's such a different thing, obviously, than writing for any other age group, and it has been really fun to get to start talking to kids about it, to have a book that you can give to little people, and it's so rewarding, and it's so much fun. It's truly been one of my most delightful publishing experiences, if not the most delightful.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It is fun and adorable to see a little 4-year-old kind of twitch their eye like that. But if it's a 19 or 20-year-old, you're going to be,
But it is really, I mean, it's the kind of engagement of, stories. Obviously, we all are in a business where we believe in stories, and stories are so important. And I think it starts so young, and I've gotten to be lucky enough in my career to see the ripple effects of kids who love reading at a later age and who love books, and that starts when they're little, and it starts with bedtime stories and books like this, and pictures that bring these stories to life. And so it feels like such a privilege to get to write for this age group.
Now, one of the things we do here on the podcast is we encourage the parents that are listening to the show to continue to read with their kids or co-read with their kids throughout their lifetime. So, if you were on here to celebrate Happy Again, I'm not sure what age group that's, but we'd be encouraging families to co-read that and experience that book together. I'm wondering if it's different for you now that you wrote a book that was going to be almost exclusively read by a family, as opposed to most of your books are being read by a teenager by themselves.
Yeah, it is. I mean, first of all, I love that. I think reading out loud is it's just a really nice way to bring these things to life, and reading together. And obviously, whether it's a book club or whether it's reading out loud as a family, it's just a really lovely thought. But yeah, I mean, I love that too. I've written for mostly only for teens for so many years, and that's a really specific band of ages that, and I'm lucky enough. I have, like, adults, younger kids often come to the books because they're very wholesome, and adults read them. And I love when I get an email every once in a while from, like, a 72-year-old woman who's like, I'm a fan of your teen romance novel, and it makes me so happy. And they're truly the best emails to get. But this book is different because it is engineered to make, for families to sit down with it together. And it's just, I watch little kids, my nephews, my friends' kids, other kids that I know, who find a book they love and read it again and again and again. And and it's just fun to imagine that could be a family favorite for other people.
So exciting. Well, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find that website that I've been referring to and find out more about you and also the Creature of Habit.
Yeah, my website's jenniferesmith.com. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I think it's Jen E. Smith on Twitter and Jennifer E. Smith on Instagram. And you can buy the book starting to I don't know when this podcast is airing, but starting November 9th for wherever books are sold. I'm always a fan of supporting indie bookstores. We're doing, at any point, you can order a signed copy through Once Upon a Time bookstore in Los Angeles, and it's nearby, and I go over and sign them, and they'll send them off. So but you can find it anywhere, and it's something I'm really proud of and really excited about, and I hope that everybody loves it.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Creature of Habit, Jennifer Smith. Hey, Jennifer, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. It's been really fun.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Grace Estelle. She'll be here to celebrate her Chandler the Crocodile picture book. That's the next episode of the podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, might we invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com? Urge you to click on the author's click here button at the top of the page. That will allow you to find out about the wonderful ways that we can help you celebrate your book. You can be a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, it doesn't cost you a thing, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. You can also find out about our Certified Great Read program and find out what happens if our panel believes that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars. And of course, you can take part in our monthly promotion program that will celebrate your books through commercials on the podcast, messages to our 55,000 plus social media followers, and have your book displayed on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. Check it out today. Go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on the author's click here button at the top of the page, and scroll on down to our various services. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, want to start by thanking our guest, Jennifer Smith. Be sure to check out The Creature of Habit. Also want to thank our sponsor, The Books by Kim Ann. Go visit her website, kimann.co. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Michael Murphy. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.